Jake Morrison stood at the large window of the HMS Discovery and watched the alien space station grow bigger as they got closer. The station was huge, maybe 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant crystal flower floating in space with bright lights dancing across its surface. After 50 years of listening to alien radio signals and 20 years of building their first faster-than-light ship, humanity was finally here to ask for membership in the Galactic Council. "Captain, we will reach the docking bay in 30 minutes, said Commander Rick Torres from his control station. His voice was calm, but Jake could hear the excitement hiding underneath. Everyone on the ship felt it. This was the most important day in human history. Dr. Lisa Carter walked up to Jake carrying a thick folder full of papers and data chips. She was the ship's expert on alien life, and she had spent months preparing their presentation. "I have reviewed everything one more time," she said. "Our art, our music, our science, our medicine. I think they will be impressed." Jake nodded but kept looking at the space station. "What if they are not impressed? What if they think we are too young, too primitive?" "Then we keep trying," Lisa said with a smile. "Humans are good at that." Ambassador Helen Brooks joined them at the window. She was a tall woman with gray hair who had been a diplomat for 30 years. She would be the one to speak for all of humanity today. "The translation computers are working perfectly," she said. "We can understand 47 different alien languages now. That has to count for something." The docking process took an hour. The alien technology was so advanced that the Discovery barely had to do anything. Invisible forces just pulled them gently into the right position. When the airlock opened, Jake felt his heart beating faster. On the other side was a corridor made of the same crystal material as the station, with soft blue light coming from the walls themselves. Their guide was a Karathi, one of the aquatic species that lived in water-filled suits. The suit was transparent, and Jake could see the dolphin-like creature swimming inside. "Welcome, humans," the Karathi said through speakers on its suit. "I am Tide Walker. The council waits for you." They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Jake saw dozens of different alien species through doorways and windows. Some looked like giant insects, others like living plants, and some were just balls of light that moved through the air. All of them stopped what they were doing to stare at the humans. "They are curious about us," Helen whispered, "or they are judging us already," Rick said quietly. The council chamber was breathtaking. It was a huge room shaped like the inside of an egg, with seats arranged in circles going up to the ceiling. Each seat was designed for a different type of alien body. Some hung from the ceiling, others floated in tanks of liquid, and some seemed to be made of pure energy. At the center of the room was a raised platform where the humans would make their presentation. Jake counted the alien representatives as they walked to their positions. 47 species, just like the radio messages had said. Some were friendly and nodded at the humans. Others just stared with eyes that showed no emotion at all. The leader of the council was a Zapirian, one of the tall, thin aliens, with skin so clear you could see light passing through it. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Vexiller, Prime Speaker of the Galactic Council. Humans of Earth, you have asked to join our community of world. Show us why we should accept Helen stepped forward and activated their presentation system. Images of Earth appeared in the air above them, showing beautiful landscapes, great cities and works of art. She talked about human achievements in science and medicine. She showed them pictures of the International Space Station, the first human settlements on Mars, and the development of faster-than-light travel. The aliens listened carefully. Some took notes with devices that looked like living creatures. Others seemed to be talking to each other in ways humans could not hear. Jake thought it was going well. The aliens appeared interested in human music and art. They asked good questions about human technology. Then came the hard part. Vithani representative, a large reptilian creature with scales that changed color, asked about human history. Helen had prepared for this question, but Jake knew it would be difficult. Tell us about your wars, the Vithani said, its scales turning a deep red color. Helen took a deep breath. Humans have had conflicts, yes. We have made mistakes, but we have also learned from them. We have not had a major war in over 80 years. We have worked together to solve problems like climate change and poverty. How many of your own species have you killed? Asked another alien, this one looking like a walking tree with eyes in its bark. Question hit like a punch to the stomach. Helen looked down at her notes, then back up at the council. Too many. She said honestly, we estimate that humans have killed over 1 billion other humans in wars throughout our history. The chamber became very quiet. Jake could see the aliens looking at each other in ways that seemed like shock or disgust. A representative from the ethereal collective, a being made of pure energy, spoke in a voice that sounded like music. You have poisoned your own world. You have driven thousands of species to extinction. You create weapons designed only to kill your own kind. But we stopped, Helen said, her voice getting stronger. We learned, we grew. We are not the same species we were 100 years ago. Are you not? Asked Vexiller. Your presentation shows that you still have crime, you still have inequality. Some of your people still go hungry while others have too much. You call this progress? Dr. Carter stepped forward. We call it being human. We are not perfect, but we try to be better every day. Is that not worth something? An alien that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in the air pulsed different colors as it spoke. The youngest species in our council achieved peace and harmony over 10,000 years ago. Most of us eliminated conflict from our societies millions of years ago. You are asking us to accept a species that still struggles with the most basic aspects of civilized behavior. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. This was not the time for human emotions to take over. The debate went on for hours. Some aliens seemed to support humanity. Tide Walker, the Karathi guide, spoke about human creativity and adaptability. A few others mentioned human bravery and willingness to help others. But for every positive comment, there were 3 negative ones. Finally, Vexteller called for the formal vote. All those in favor of accepting humanity into the Galactic Council. Jakey counted the lights that appeared above each representative. 7 green lights out of 47. His heart sank. All those opposed. 39 red lights. 1 representative, Tide Walker, showed no light at all. The motion fails, Vexeller announced. Humanity is rejected for membership in the Galactic Council. You may reapply in 50 Earth years if you have made sufficient progress in eliminating your violent and chaotic tendencies. Walk back to their ship felt like it took forever. Nobody spoke. The other aliens they passed in the corridors no longer seemed curious. Now they looked at the humans with something like pity. Only when they were safely back on the Discovery did anyone say anything. Rick Torres was the first to break the silence. 50 years they want us to wait. 50 years they want us to become something we are not, Helen said. Slumping into a chair, they want us to be perfect like them. Jake was about to respond when their communication system beeped. An encrypted message was coming in from the Carathi representative. Lisa quickly decoded it and read it out loud. Your people may yet prove their worth. Great test approaches the galaxy. Perhaps then the stars will see what I see in humanity. Jake looked out at the alien space station one more time as they prepared to leave. What do you think that means? I do not know, Lisa said, but something tells me we will find out soon. As the HMS Discovery turned away from the station and began its long journey back to Earth, none of the humans on board could have imagined that in just 3 months those same aliens who had rejected them would be begging for their help. The galaxy was about to face something that all their perfection and harmony could not protect them from, and humanity with all their flaws and chaos would be the only hope for survival. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity's request for membership. Dr. Lisa Carter was working late in her laboratory on Luna Base, Earth's main research station. On the moon, she was studying samples of alien technology that the Council had allowed them to take, trying to understand how their energy systems worked. The lab was quiet except for the soft humming of the computers. Lisa liked working at night when there were fewer people around. She could think better without all the noise and interruptions. She was looking at a piece of zephyrin crystal under a powerful microscope when the emergency alarm started blaring. All senior staff to the command center. Immediately came the voice over the speakers. Priority 1 alert. Lisa ran through the corridors of Luna Base, her heart beating fast. Priority 1 meant something really serious was happening. When she reached the command center, she found Admiral Jake Morrison already there, along with Dr. Ben Walker from the physics department and Dr. Amy Foster, their best expert on spacetime. What is going on? Lisa asked as she caught her breath. Jake pointed to the main display screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of tiny lights representing star systems. As Lisa watched, one of the lights simply disappeared. The orb in deep space. Sensors started picking this up 2 hours ago, Jake said. Entire star systems are vanishing, not exploding, not moving to a different location. They are just gone, like they never existed at all. Dr. Walker was typing commands into his computer terminal. I have checked the data 3 times. The Kepler 186 system was there yesterday. Today our sensors show nothing but empty space. No stars, no planets, no debris, nothing. How many systems have disappeared? Lisa asked. 12. In the last 2 weeks, Amy Foster said, her face pale, and the rate is increasing. We lost 3 just in the last day. Jake activated the communication system and called Earth. Within minutes, President Carol Stevens appeared on the screen from her office. In Geneva, she looked tired and worried. "Admiral Morrison, please tell me this is some kind of sensor malfunction," the president said. "I wish I could, Madam President, but we have confirmed it with multiple sensor arrays. Something is making entire solar systems disappear from the universe." The president was quiet for a moment. "Have we heard anything from the Galactic Council about this?" "Nothing official," Jake said, "but our communication specialists have been monitoring their emergency frequencies. They are in complete panic. Some of their most advanced civilizations are just gone." Lisa studied the pattern of disappearing systems on the display. "It does not seem random. There is a pattern here, like whatever is doing this is moving through the galaxy in a specific way. Can we predict where it will strike next?" the president asked. Amy Foster shook her head. "Not yet. We need more data to understand the pattern." As they talked, another light disappeared from the map. Everyone in the room went quiet. They were watching civilizations that had existed for millions of years simply vanish from reality. "Keep monitoring everything," Jake ordered, "and try to contact any alien ships or stations that might be willing to share information with us." Over the next few days, the situation got worse. More systems disappeared. Every day, the human scientists worked around the clock trying to understand what was happening. They intercepted fragments of alien communications, most of them just screams and panic. The breakthrough came when Dr. Walker detected a faint transmission from a Zephyrian research station. Just as it was about to disappear, the station was sending out all its data in a desperate attempt to preserve some record of what was happening to them. "I am getting the transmission now," Walker said, his fingers flying over the controls. "The translation computer is working on it." The alien data appeared on their screens. Lisa gasped as she read it. "They call it the void. It is not just destroying matter and energy. It is erasing the very existence of things. According to this data, it is unraveling the fabric of space and time itself." "How is that possible?" Amy asked. "Zephyrians believe it is an extra-dimensional entity," Lisa continued, reading, "something that exists partially outside our normal reality. When it touches our universe, it breaks down the basic laws that hold everything together." Jake studied the data carefully. "This explains why the star systems are not just destroyed but completely erased. This thing is removing them from existence itself." More alien transmissions came in over the following days, but they were getting weaker and fewer. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were helpless against this threat. Species that had mastered energy and matter that could travel between stars as easily as humans crossed a street were being wiped out without being able to fight back. Dr. Carter made a disturbing discovery while analyzing the pattern of attacks. "I think I understand how this void chooses its targets. It seems to be attracted to highly organized civilizations. The more perfect and harmonious a society is, the more likely it is to be attacked." "That makes no sense," Ben Walker said. "Why would it target the most advanced species?" "Maybe that is exactly why," Lisa said slowly. "What if this entity feeds on perfection somehow? What if chaos and disorder are like poison to it?" Amy Foster looked up from her calculations. "If that is true, then humanity might be safer than the other species. We are Certainly not perfect or harmonious. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. The same qualities that got us rejected from the Galactic Council might be the things that save us from this void. Their theory was tested sooner than they expected. A week later, Commander Rick Torres returned from a reconnaissance mission to the edge of the affected area in his ship, the UES Defiant. He had taken a small crew to observe one of the void attacks from a safe distance. Admiral, you need to see this, Rick said as soon as he arrived at Luna Base. He was pale and shaking slightly. We watched it consume the altar system. The way it happens is unlike anything we have ever seen. Rick activated a holographic display showing his ship's recordings. In the center of the display was a normal star system with several planets orbiting a bright yellow star. Then something appeared at the edge of the system. It was hard to describe because it was not really there in any normal sense. It looked like a hole in reality itself, a place where the universe just stopped existing. The planets did not explode or get pulled into it, Rick continued. They just started to fade away, like someone was erasing them from a picture. And the strangest part is that our instruments show the system is still there, but our eyes and most of our sensors say it is gone. Lisa leaned forward, studying the recording. What do you mean? The instruments still show it is there. The gravitational sensors still detect the mass of the star and planets. The quantum field detectors show that spacem is still curved in that area, but visible light, radio waves, and most other forms of energy act like there is nothing there at all. Amy Foster gasped as she realized what this meant. It is not destroying the systems, it is shifting them into a different phase of reality, somewhere between existing and not existing. But there is something else, Rick said, his voice getting quieter. Something even stranger. We are the only ones who remember the systems that have been consumed. I talked to some alien refugees we picked up, survivors from ships that escaped before their home systems were attacked. They do not remember their home worlds anymore. To them, those places never existed. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. But we remember them, every single one. Rick confirmed. We have perfect records of all the systems that have been consumed. The aliens think we are crazy when we tell them about their lost homes. Lisa was already working at her computer, pulling up data on human brain structure compared to alien brains. This might be related to how human consciousness works. Our brains are more chaotic, more random in how they store and process memories. Maybe that chaos protects our memories from being erased along with the physical reality. So our messy, imperfect human minds are immune to this thing's memory eraser. Jake said, the same qualities the Council hated about us are keeping us sane while the rest of the galaxy loses its mind. As if to prove his point, they received an encrypted message on the emergency channel they had set up with Tide Walker, the Karathi scientist who had tried to help them at the Council. The message was short and desperate. The Council is breaking apart. Half of our member species have forgotten they ever existed. The others are too terrified to act. We were wrong about you humans. Your chaos might be our only hope. Please help us. Jake looked around the command center at his team. Lisa Carter studying alien data with determination. Ben Walker and Amy Foster working together to understand an impossible enemy. Rick Torres ready to fly back into danger if needed. They were not perfect, they argued. They made mistakes. They sometimes let their emotions get in the way of logic, but they were still here. They still remembered. And now the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were asking them for help. Send a reply to Tide Walker. Jake ordered, tell him we will help, but this time we do it our way. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in front of the United Earth Assembly, looking at the faces of representatives from every nation on the planet. The Great Hall in Geneva was packed with people who would decide the fate of not just humanity, but possibly the entire galaxy. For 3 days they had been debating whether Earth should help the alien species that had rejected them just months earlier. The vote will be close, President Carol Stevens whispered to Jake as they waited for the final speeches to end. The isolationists are saying we should let the aliens solve their own problems. Jake nodded, but kept his eyes on the assembly floor where Senator Mike Davis from North America was giving his speech. Why should we risk human lives for species that called us too violent and primitive? Let them use their superior technology to fix this themselves. Dr. Lisa Carter, sitting in the expert witness section, raised her hand to speak. The assembly president recognized her. Dr. Carter, you have studied this void more than anyone. What happens if we do nothing? Lisa stood up and activated the holographic display system. A map of the galaxy appeared, showing the spiral pattern of disappearing star systems. The void is moving inward through the galaxy in a predictable pattern. If it continues at its current rate, it will reach the outer edge of our solar system in approximately 2 years. A murmur went through the assembly. Many representatives had not realized that Earth was also in danger, but that gives us time to prepare our own defenses, said Representative Chen from the Asian Federation. No, Lisa said firmly, it does not. Every piece of data we have shows that traditional defenses are useless against the void. Energy weapons pass right through it. Physical barriers are absorbed. The most advanced military forces in the galaxy have been completely helpless. Dr. Amy Foster stood up from her seat next to Lisa. Our only advantage is that human consciousness seems to be immune to the void's memory erasure effects, but that will not save us if the entity erases our entire solar system from existence. The debate continued for hours. Finally, President Stevens called for the vote. Jake held his breath as the results appeared on the main screen. Decision to help the aliens passed by just 12 votes out of nearly 2,000 cast. We will help, Jake said later in a video conference with Tide Walker and other alien leaders who had gathered at a secret location. But we do this under human command. No more councils, no more debates about every decision. If you want our help, you follow our orders. The Karathi scientist's response came through the translation system with what sounded like relief. We agree to your terms. We have no choice. Half of the remaining council species have been consumed and the others are paralyzed by fear. Within a week, the first alien ships arrived at Luna Base. Jake watched from the observation deck as vessels from a dozen different species docked with the human space station. Some of the ships were beautiful, like living works of art. Others were purely functional, designed by minds that thought very differently from humans. The cultural problems started immediately. Dr. Ben Walker was trying to work with a team of Saphirian scientists on weapon modifications, but they could not agree on anything. The aliens wanted to run thousands of computer simulations before making any changes. The humans wanted to build a prototype and test it. Your approach is too dangerous, said Luxel, the Zapirian physicist. Her translucent skin was glowing with agitation. We must be certain that our modifications will work before we implement them. We do not have time for certainty, Ben replied, his frustration obvious. While you are running simulations, more star systems are disappearing. Sometimes you have to take a risk. Commander Rick Torres was having similar problems with the mixed species fleet that was assembling around Earth. The alien captains wanted to maintain perfect formation at all times. When Rick suggested that ships should operate independently to confuse the void, they were horrified. Chaos in battle leads to disaster, said captain of the Zaphirin vessel Crystal Wind. We must maintain order and coordination. Order is exactly what the void expects. Rick shot back. That is why it has been able to consume every organized fleet it has encountered. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. 8-year-old Danny Kim, the son of Dr. Peter Kim, who was working as a translator, had been sitting quietly in the corner of the main conference room while the adults argued. He had been drawing pictures with his electronic tablet while listening to the alien communication streams that were constantly playing in the background. Daddy, Danny said, during a break in one particularly heated discussion. The voice in the computer is sad. Dr. Kim looked at his son's drawings. They showed strain, swirling patterns that hurt to look at directly, but mixed in with the patterns were images that looked like stars and planets, all connected by flowing lines. What voice, Danny? Lisa asked, kneeling down to the boys level. The one that eats the stars. It is not mean. It is just really, really hungry for something it lost a long time ago. The adults exchanged glances. Danny had been unconsciously processing the data streams from the void's attacks, and his young mind had somehow interpreted them in a way that mature brains could not. Lisa took the boys' drawings to her laboratory and fed them into the computer analysis system. What she found changed everything they thought they knew about their enemy. The void is not trying to destroy civilizations, she announced at the next strategy meeting. It is trying to feed on something specific about them. According to Dai's interpretation of the data patterns, it is consuming what he calls perfect harmony. That makes sense, Amy Foster said. Studying the analysis, every species it has attacked has achieved some form of perfect social order. No conflict, no disagreement, no chaos. Jake leaned back in his chair. So it is literally feeding on the perfection that the Galactic Council was so proud of. Their theory was tested sooner than expected. A week later, Rick Torres was leading a mixed patrol of human and alien ships when they encountered a void manifestation attacking a refugee convoy. The convoy was carrying survivors from 17 different species, all flying in perfect formation as they tried to escape. All ships break formation and attack independently. Rick ordered over the communication system. That is suicide, protested the alien squadron leader. We must maintain coordination. Trust me, Rick said. Chaos is our weapon. Human ships immediately broke from the formation and began attacking the void from multiple directions with no apparent coordination. The alien ships hesitated, then reluctantly followed the human example. The effect was immediate. The void, which had been steadily advancing on the refugee convoy, seemed to slow down and lose focus. It started reaching for one target, then another, unable to predict the random attack patterns. But the real surprise came when Captain Lisa Grant of the UES Courage made a desperate decision. Her ship was badly damaged and losing power. Instead of retreating, she flew directly into the dark center of the void manifestation. Everyone expected the Courage to be instantly erased like so many other ships. Instead, it emerged on the other side completely unharmed. The chaotic, desperate nature of Lisa's decision had somehow disrupted the void's feeding process. "Did you see that?" Rick called out over the communication channel. "The void cannot process true chaos. It expects order even in attacks against it." Dr. Walker, monitoring the battle from Luna Base, was frantically taking notes. The void feeds unpredictable patterns on harmony and order. Human unpredictability acts like poison to it. The alien squadron leaders were stunned. They had spent millions of years believing that chaos and disorder were the enemies of civilization. Now they were learning that these same qualities might be the key to survival. Back at Luna Base, the implications were sinking in for everyone. Tide Walker was the first to voice what they were all thinking. "Your species was rejected by the W Council because you had not achieved the harmony and perfection we valued, but that rejection may have saved not just you but all of us." Jake looked around the room at the mixed group of humans and aliens who were now working together. The aliens were starting to change. He noticed they were making decisions faster, arguing more, showing individual opinions instead of always seeking consensus. "Maybe," Jake said slowly, "the galaxy does not need to be saved from the void. Maybe it needs to be saved from the idea that perfection is something worth achieving." Admiral Claire Martinez, who had just been promoted to lead the combined fleet, nodded in agreement. "If we are going to win this war, we need to teach the entire galaxy how to be beautifully imperfect." Lisa Carter smiled as she watched the alien scientists in her lab working alongside humans. They were starting to take risks, to try new ideas without running endless simulations first. They were learning to embrace the chaos that humans had never been able to eliminate from their nature. "The question now," Lisa said, "is whether we can teach them fast enough. The void is still out there, and it is still moving toward the center of the galaxy. We have maybe 18 months before it reaches the core systems where billions of refugees are gathering." Jake stood up and looked out at the fleet that was assembling around Earth. Human ships flying next to alien vessels, each group learning from the other. It was messy, unpredictable, and chaotic. Admiral Claire Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for battle. Ships from 23 different species floated in space around her, but they no longer flew in the perfect formations that aliens had used for millions of years. Instead, they moved in seemingly random patterns that made no sense to traditional military thinking. "Admiral, all ships report ready for the scattered strike formation," reported Captain Rodriguez. From the UES Tempest, his ship was one of 12 human vessels that would lead the attack against the void manifestation that had appeared near the Riel system. Claire nodded and opened the fleet communication channel. All ships, remember what we have learned. Do not think like a military force, think like a group of individuals who happen to be fighting the same enemy. Trust your instincts, not your training. The alien captains had struggled with this concept at first. Captain Velter of the Zaffirin ship Crystal Wind had spent 3 weeks learning to make decisions without consulting his crew. Flo Singinger, the Carathi engineer who commanded a bioship that looked like a giant jellyfish, had to practice acting on impulse instead of careful planning. This still feels wrong, said over the communication channel. Every instinct tells me to coordinate with the other ships. That is exactly why it will work, Claire replied. The void expects coordination. It feeds on predictable patterns. We are going to give it chaos instead. Dr. Lisa Carter was monitoring the battle from her mobile laboratory aboard the science vessel UES Discovery. She had been studying the void for months now, and each encounter taught them something new about their enemy. Admiral, the void manifestation is approximately 3 km wide and growing. It appears to be trying to establish a permanent foothold in this reality. Understood, Doctor. All ships begin the attack. Remember, no patterns, no coordination. Fight like humans. Battle that followed would have horrified military commanders from any previous era. Ships attacked from random directions with no apparent strategy. Some vessels charged straight at the void while others hung back and fired from long range. A few ships even retreated in the middle of combat, then returned from completely different angles. The void, which had easily consumed organized fleets for months, seemed confused by the chaotic assault. It reached out with tendrils of nothingness to grab ships that suddenly changed direction for no reason. It tried to predict attack patterns that did not exist. Captain Lisa Grant, who had survived her first encounter with the void, was piloting a new ship called the UES Courage 2. She dove her vessel directly through the center of the void manifestation while playing loud rock music over her ship's speakers. Grant, what are you doing? Claire called out. I have no idea. Lisa laughed over the communication channel, but it feels right. Dr. Ben Walker, working with alien scientists on Luna Base, had made a breakthrough in understanding why human music seemed to affect the void. Irregular rhythms and emotional complexity create quantum fluctuations that disrupt the void's dimensional anchoring. The more chaotic and unpredictable the music, the better it works. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, combat engineer who had joined the fleet despite having no space combat training, suggested something even stranger. What if we use jazz? That music is all about improvisation and breaking rules. The idea seemed crazy, but they tried it anyway. When the fleet ships began broadcasting jazz music during their attacks, the effect was immediate. The void manifestation started to shrink and lose cohesion. It is working, report Flowinger from her biohip. The entity cannot maintain its hold on this reality when exposed to such beautiful chaos. But the most important discovery came when they ventured into space that the void had already consumed. Dr. Amy Foster had developed sensors that could detect the ghost systems that existed in the strange space between reality and nothingness. Admiral, you need to see this, Amy called from the Discovery, the consumed. Star systems are not gone, they are trapped in a kind of dimensional bubble. And some of them are starting to come back. On the main display screen they could see the faint outline of a solar system that had been consumed weeks earlier, but something was different about it. The perfect crystalline cities of the Zahirian colonies were now irregular and chaotic. The precisely ordered space stations had become asymmetrical and random in design. The civilizations that are returning have been changed, Lisa Carter observed. They are no longer perfect. They have become chaotic, emotional, and unpredictable. Dr. Peter Kim, monitoring alien communication frequencies, made an even more startling discovery. The aliens in those returning systems are not just building differently, they are thinking differently. Listen to this transmission from the restored Kepler 442 system. The message that played was from a Zahirian colony that had been consumed by the void 2 months earlier, but instead of the formal harmonious speech patterns that Zafirans normally used, the transmission was filled with emotion, individual opinions, and even arguments between different speakers. We are not the same people who were taken the lead, Zirian said in the message. We have learned something in that place between existence and nothing. We have learned that perfection is a kind of death. Admiral Jake Morrison, coordinating the overall war effort from Earth, called in emergency meeting with all the senior commanders and scientists. What we are seeing changes everything. The void is not just our enemy, it is also our teacher. What do you mean? Asked Tide Walker, who had been working closely with human engineers to modify Karathi biohips. Jake activated a holographic display showing the pattern of void attacks across the galaxy. Look at where it strikes and when. It always targets the most perfectly ordered civilizations first. It is not randomly destroying the galaxy. It is performing some kind of cosmic surgery, cutting out the parts that have become too perfect, too stagnant. Dr. Carter nodded slowly as she understood what Jake was suggesting. The void is like an immune system for the galaxy itself. When civilizations become too ordered, too perfect, they stop growing and changing. The void removes that perfection and gives them back their ability to evolve. But why do humans remember the consumed systems when other species forget? Asked Claire Martinez. Because we were never perfect to begin with, Lisa replied. Our chaotic, messy way of thinking makes us immune to the void's memory effects. We are the galaxy's memory keepers. The implications were staggering. Every species in the combined fleet was changing as they learned to fight alongside humans. The Zafirans were becoming more emotional and spontaneous. The methodical Karathi were learning to act on instinct. Even the logical Vithani were developing what humans recognized as humor and creativity. Luxel, the Zafirian physicist who had argued with Ben Walker about running simulations, was now building weapons without testing them first. I understand now why your species was rejected from the council, she told Ben. During one of their work sessions, you represented everything we were afraid to become, but now I see that fear was holding us back. Flo Singinger, the Karathi engineer, had started composing what she called probability songs, equations that worked despite being mathematically imperfect. Human chaos is not random, she explained. To Dr. Carter, it is creative disorder. It builds new possibilities instead of just following old patterns, Captain. Rodriguez was working with alien pilots to develop new combat techniques that had never been tried before. Stop thinking like soldiers, he told them. Think like artists who happen to be carrying weapons. The changes were not just happening in the military, across the galaxy, the surviving alien civilizations were transforming. Scientists were taking risks with their experiments. Artists were creating works that challenged social norms. Politicians were arguing and disagreeing instead of always seeking consensus. Admiral Martinez realized that they were not just fighting a war anymore. They were midwifing the birth of a new kind of galactic civilization, one that embraced imperfection and chaos as sources of strength rather than problems to be solved. The question is, she said, during a strategy meeting with the other commanders, what happens when we finally face the void's main manifestation? Everything we have fought so far has been just fragments, pieces of the real entity. Dr. Walker had been tracking the void's movements and had calculated where it was heading. The main entity is moving toward the galactic core where the oldest and most perfect civilizations have gathered. If our theory is correct, that is where it will make its final stand. Jake Morrison looked at the assembled leaders, human and alien, military and scientific, all working together in beautiful chaotic harmony. Then that is where we make ours too. It is time to take this fight to the source. As the combined fleet prepared for the journey to the galaxy's center, no one could predict what they would find there, but they knew one thing for certain: they would face it together as imperfect allies in an imperfect universe that was finally learning how to be alive again. Journey to the galactic core took 3 weeks, and every day brought new challenges. Admiral Claire Martinez watched from the bridge of the UES Liberty as the combined fleet of human and alien ships traveled through space. That was becoming increasingly unstable. Reality itself seemed to be breaking down as they got closer to the void's main manifestation. Admiral sensors are detecting massive reality distortions ahead, reported Dr. Lisa Carter from the science vessel Discovery. Space and time are not behaving normally in this region. Captain Rodriguez, commanding the scout ships that flew ahead of the main fleet, sent back reports that sounded impossible. We are seeing planets that exist and do not exist at the same time. Stars that burn with cold fire. Space stations built from materials that should not be able to hold together. Dr. Ben Walker working with alien scientists to understand what they were encountering had a theory. The void has been active in this region for a very long time. It has transformed the galactic core into something between normal reality and the dimensional space where it lives. As they traveled deeper into the affected region, the changes in their alien allies became more dramatic. Tide Walker, the Carathi scientist who had first reached out to humanity, was now making decisions based on intuition rather than careful analysis. Luxul, the Zapirian physicist, had started painting abstract art in her spare time. I do not understand what is happening to me, Luxfeld told Dr. Carter during one of their research sessions. For my entire life, I sought perfection in everything I did. Now I find beauty in mistakes and accidents. You are becoming more human, Lisa replied with a smile. Not in biology, but in spirit. You are learning that imperfection is not a flaw to be fixed, but a feature to be celebrated. The transformation was happening throughout the fleet. Alien crews were arguing with their captains. Scientists were conducting experiments without approval, and artists from dozen species were creating works that their cultures had never seen before. It was chaos, but it was creative chaos that built new possibilities. Captain Lisa Grant flying reconnaissance missions. Dangerous areas reported seeing something that changed their understanding of their mission. Admiral, there are alien refugees in the core systems, billions of them all gathered around the oldest stars in the galaxy. They are not fleeing from the void anymore, they are waiting for it. Admiral Jake Morrison, coordinating the mission from Earth, called an emergency conference with all the fleet commanders. Why would they be waiting for something that has been consuming entire civilizations? The answer came from an unexpected source. 8-year-old Danny Kim, who had been studying the void's communication patterns, made a drawing that showed the II truth. His picture depicted a massive entity at the galactic core, but it was not attacking the gathered civilizations. Instead, it seemed to be trying to communicate with them. The big voice is not angry anymore, Danny told the adults. It is sad and lonely. It wants to teach the star people something, but they are too scared to listen. Dr. Amy Foster analyzed Danny and LT Unk and GTY's interpretation of the void signals and made a breakthrough discovery. The main void entity is not trying to consume the core civilizations. It is trying to transform them, but the process requires their willing participation. What kind of transformation? Asked Admiral Martinez. Based on the data patterns, it appears to be trying to restore their ability to grow and change. The oldest civilizations in the galaxy have been perfect and unchanging. For millions of years, they have become evolutionary dead ends. As the fleet approached the galactic core, they could see the void's main manifestation. It was enormous, bigger than entire solar systems, but it was not the destructive force they had expected. Instead of consuming the gathered alien civilizations, it was surrounding them in a kind of protective bubble. This is Admiral Martinez to all ships, Claire announced over the fleet communication system. We are not here to fight a war. We are here to facilitate a conversation. The first contact was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. When the void became aware of the approaching fleet, it reached out with tendrils of non-existence that passed harmlessly through the human ships, but caused the alien vessels to flicker in and out of reality. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, now serving as a communication specialist despite her lack of formal training, suggested using music to establish contact. If jazz disrupts the void's attacks, maybe classical music could help us talk to it. They tried broadcasting box compositions into the dimensional space where the void existed. The response was immediate. The entity began to resonate with the mathematical harmony of the music while simultaneously being soothed by its emotional complexity. Dr. Carter, working with alien linguists, managed to establish basic communication. What they learned changed everything they thought they knew about the void. It was once a civilization like ours, Lisa reported to the fleet commanders, the most advanced species the galaxy had ever produced. They achieved absolute perfection in every aspect of their existence. Perfect harmony, perfect technology, perfect understanding of the universe. What happened to them? Asked Tidewalker. They realized that perfection was a trap. When there are no more problems to solve, no more growth to achieve, no more changes to experience, existence becomes meaningless. They chose to sacrifice their physical forms to become something that could prevent other civilizations from making the same mistake. The void had spent millions of years traveling through the galaxy, removing the deadly perfection that caused civilizations to stagnate, but the process had made it lonely and desperate, feeding on the very quality it was trying to eliminate. Admiral Morrison understood what needed to happen. It needs to learn how to create imperfection instead of just consuming perfection. It needs to learn how to be human. The solution was both simple and complex. The combined fleet began working with the gathered alien civilizations and the void entity to create something that had never existed before, a cosmic collaboration between perfect order and creative chaos. Captain Rodriguez led teams of human engineers working with void-touched alien scientists to build impossible structures that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Dr. Walker collaborated with the entity itself to develop technologies that worked by embracing uncertainty rather than eliminating it. Flowinger, the Karathi engineer, composed symphonies of quantum probability that helped the void learn to build rather than consume. Luxel created artworks that existed in the space between reality and imagination, teaching the entity that beauty could come from imperfection. The transformation took months. Slowly, the void began to change from a consumer of perfection into a creator of creative chaos. It learned to seed civilizations with just enough disorder to keep them growing and evolving. Instead of erasing perfect societies, it began adding random elements that would prevent them from becoming stagnant. First sign that the process was working came when the previously consumed star systems began returning to normal reality. But they were not the same as before. The Zephyrian colonies now featured architecture that celebrated irregularity. The Karathi cities had sections that grew organically instead of being planned. Even the logical Vithani had developed art forms based on controlled randomness. Dr. Carter made the most important discovery during the final phase of the transformation. The entity is not just learning to create chaos, it is learning to feel joy. For the first time in millions of years, it is experiencing happiness. When the transformation was complete, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The Galactic Council was reformed, but instead of seeking perfect consensus, it now celebrated productive disagreement. Different species learned from each other's mistakes as much as their successes. Admiral Martinez stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, watching as ships from hundreds of species came and went in patterns that would have seemed chaotic to the old galaxy but felt natural now. Humans were no longer outsiders begging for acceptance. They were teachers showing other species how to embrace their imperfections. President Carol Stevens addressed the new Galactic Assembly from Earth. You once rejected us because we were flawed. We saved you because we accepted those flaws. Now we all understand that the greatest perfection is knowing that perfection itself is imperfect. Jake Morrison, now serving as the first human prime speaker of the Reformed Council, often thought about how far they had all come, the species that had once considered humanity too chaotic to join their perfect society now celebrated chaos as the source of all growth and creativity. The void transformed into what the alien philosophers called the cosmic gardener continued to travel through the galaxy, but instead of consuming perfection, it now planted seeds of creative disorder wherever civilizations began to stagnate. It had learned the most human lesson of all, that the journey toward perfection was more valuable than perfection itself. Dr. Lisa Carter, now the galaxy's leading expert on cosmic evolution, summed up the change in a report that became required reading for all member species. We learned that being perfectly imperfect is not a contradiction. It is the fundamental principle that keeps the universe alive, growing, and beautiful.